My co-anchor Melissa Masiha joins us live from Southcrest, Melissa, where one man is really pushing now for long-term change.
Yeah, you know, Jared, a lot of people want long-term change. As you mentioned, it has been nearly 8 months since that flooding. I am here on Beta Street, one of the areas really affected. You take a quick look around, it might seem like things are back to normal, things are quiet, but there are reminders of what happened after the floods. All of the countless meetings of residents trying to get answers. And if you look at this home here, there are literal signs of people, unfortunately, leaving the neighborhood. Now, I checked back in with Greg Montoya. We interviewed him shortly after the flooding, and he says there is still a long way to go before he returns back to normal.
Greg Montoya's house isn't a home yet, hasn't been since January.
How are you doing with all of this just constantly hanging over your head?
Well, it's very frustrating, especially when your politicians and other people, you know, sit there and say, America's finest city. Yeah, America's finest city for some, but not for all.
ABC 10 News first spoke to him in 2019 as he sued the city over flooding at his home back then.
As you can see, there's no drainage.
He's repeated numerous concerns over the years and what he calls lack of action from city officials right after the historic January floods.
They need to address the problem with the storm drain.
And in the months since.
Do you think they're tired of hearing from you?
Oh, yes.
Since January, progress has been made. He does have a room to sleep in now, but
I got the kitchen to do, the bathroom to finish, some windows to do, some doors to hang. Yeah, last litigation.
It's been a lot of paperwork and calls and money. This looked like this back in January.
The insurance would only cover one structure. So they said, take your pick, which one you want. Well, I took this one because this is the newer garage. That's where the water was in this structure. It was a little higher outside.
It's been redone on the outside. Priceless family memories, though, washed away.
Everything got ruined in here.
He was able to salvage a few things.
It's a little piggy bank, Popeye piggy bank.
And was thankful he had second copies of old family photos.
Greg isn't alone in all of this. You see his neighbor's home, the front of it still boarded up. His other neighbor still has a large dumpster in the driveway.
Behind the homes, more problems.
We still got dirt alleys with no drainage. You can see that the slope of the terrain, the water is going to go directly to the properties.
Greg is suing the city again. Unlike a lot of his neighbors, he had flood insurance, but said it only covered about $84,000. He got about $4,400 from FEMA and several thousand through his church, other donations, and the Housing Commission. Attorney Evan Walker said the city has denied the claims, and the lawsuit involving hundreds of plaintiffs is moving forward.
We have our first court date in November. And then we're going to have our first argument about this case set in January of 2025.
A year after the floods.
Absolutely.
Is that typical?
I think it is typical, especially given the size and scope of a lawsuit like this.
The city attorney's office told me they're letting the court process play out. We reached out to Councilmember Vivian Moreno. In a statement, she said her office has worked closely with the city's Engineering and Capital Projects Department to create and move forward the Beta Street Storm Drain Improvement Project. It's being designed utilizing $4.5 million. Once the design is complete, she said work will begin to build improvements, including upgrades to the dirt alley behind Beta Street. A time frame, though, wasn't given.
We're neglected. You know, I wish more news people would do stories on how underserved this community is.
And that's why we are here. We want to make sure that we are committed to the community and that we follow through with all of the victims, because a lot of the time, Jared, they feel like their voices aren't being heard, and we want to make sure that they are. Now, coming up in our next half hour, my colleague Moses Small will bring us back to a business as they go on their road to recovery. That's coming up at 11:30.